It looks like our ancestors may have been more capable than we initially gave them credit for. Some of the old technologies discovered recently have caused scientists to wonder how they were able to make things such as pipelines about 150,000 years ago. Our forefathers also invented the very first device that could predict earthquakes about 2,000 years ago. If either of these caught your attention, then you need to stick around till the end of the video to find out more about the very first telescope, and no, it's not the one designed by Galileo. It's not every day you hear about a very secret recipe for manufacturing steel, but the Damascus steel is a very special one. The Damascus steel is recognizable by the watery or wavy light and dark patterns of the metal. The Damascus steel maintains a keen edge. It's very hard and flexible. This makes every weapon that was made from the Damascus steel very superior to everything else that was found in the market back in the day, and as a result, the steel was used to make swords. However, anybody today who claims to have Damascus steel is not referring to a steel that was manufactured using the original method, because the technique and knowledge to produce this hard and flexible steel was lost in the 1700s. So many people have tried to reverse engineer the entire process to replicate something close to Damascus steel, but even today, no one has ever really been able to crack the formula. Today we have computers right in our pocket, but that was not the case, let's say, 100 years ago. Charles Babbage is one of the 19th century's greatest inventors, and his most famous invention, the Analytical Engine, is yet to be built. In the 1840s, the government asked Charles Babbage to build an industrial-scale calculator. He almost gave them a steam-powered computer, but this computer, if it was completed, would have been the greatest mechanical computer ever built. Several key principles of design of this machine were actually reinvented almost a century ago by people who were totally unaware of Babbage's proposed design. This clearly tells us that his machinery was way ahead of its time. Charles Babbage wanted a computer to calculate polynomial functions using something known as the finite difference method. Mechanizing the preparation of mathematical tables would free mental labor for other less tedious tasks, and it would also eliminate human error and replace it with the accuracy that these machines can provide. Sounds familiar? Well, that's exactly what automation in its many forms is doing right now. So clearly, Charles Babbage was ahead of his time with this machine, and scientists are still scratching their heads as to how Babbage was able to conceptualize this even though his machine was never actually completed. Pipelines might be a very common thing today, but it's quite strange to find evidence of them during the ancient times. And by ancient, we are talking about 150,000 years ago. Long before humans learned how to use fire, archaeologists believe that these pipes may have been used to supply water to the pyramid in China's Qinghai province. Scientists still cannot believe the fact that these pipes could be built by humans, because humans only inhabited the region about 30,000 years ago. So the probability of humans building these pipes seems extremely unreasonable and illogical. Maybe they could have been built by extraterrestrials. One possible explanation offered by scientists for what appear to be old pipelines is that they could be fossilized casts of tree roots. Or could this prove that there were in fact civilized people living in Qinghai region far before originally thought? Some of the most fascinating man-made structures on the planet could be the pyramids of Giza because of all the mysteries surrounding them. The pyramids were roughly built around 2550 and 2490 BC, and are some of the most magnificent pyramids in the world. But we still don't know much about how they were built, or how they continue to hold up as if they were built far more recently than they were. Maybe our ancestors were technologically more advanced than us if they were able to build something which has stood the test of time. Most of our modern buildings don't hold up for more than a few hundred years, making the pyramids of Giza truly a marvel of science. One of the most significant contributions from China is undoubtedly an instrument to measure the wind and movement of the Earth. At least that's what Zheng Heng wanted to call his seismoscope. This was, and still is, a very important invention in a place that is as earthquake-prone as China. So what makes this device extraordinary? Well, just 6 years after the device was invented, a large earthquake estimated at about a magnitude of 7 struck in a place that is now known as the Gansu province. People in the Han Dynasty's capital of Luoyang, which is about 1,000 miles away, did not even feel anything, but the seismoscope alerted the emperor's government about the earthquake somewhere in the west. By far, this is the very first known equipment that can detect earthquakes, especially the kind that cannot be detected by humans. The seismoscope's findings were confirmed a few days later when messengers arrived to report a major earthquake in Gansu province. What makes things even crazier is the fact that it was only in 2005 we had a functioning replica of this seismoscope, more than 2,000 years after the original one, by a group of seismologists and archaeologists from the Chinese Academy of Science. If it took so much time for us to create a replica of this machine using the knowledge that we have today, Zhong Heng must have been a true genius to build something like this 2,000 years ago. The next baffling technology is a mechanical computer that could predict astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance, which is very similar to the Olympiad, making this the very first mechanical computer that we ever had. And it's crazy to think that this existed 2,000 years ago, a time when no one thought about computers. The Antikythera mechanism is believed to be designed and constructed by Greek scientists, and there is a difference of opinions regarding the exact year when this device was invented. It could be 87 BCE, or it could be anywhere from 150 and 100 BCE to 205 BCE. Either way, it impresses scientists how early this technology came into the scene, as nothing like it would be invented for hundreds to thousands of years later. The Lycurgus Cup has its origins dating way back to the 4th century. The cup is a Roman glass cage cup that is made of dichroic glass, which means it will show different colors depending on whether or not light is passing through it. When the light hits directly onto the glass, it appears to show a green color, but when it is lit from behind, it shows a red color. Up until recently, researchers were left completely curious as to what caused the illusion. The Lycurgus Cup has inspired so many scientists in nanoplasmomics, which is the study and application of surface plasmons, and considering how advanced this technology was for its time, there might still be some secret that we don't know about the Lycurgus Cup. During a time where there were countless wars, the Greeks had to step up their game when it came to weaponry. And that's when the Byzantine Greeks prepared a very secret formula for the Greek fire so they could effectively use it in warfare during the ancient and medieval times. There are several theories suggesting that the Greek fire used to have a potassium nitrate or a saltpeter base, which is an early type of gunpowder. But then most scholars think that the Greek fire was likely a type of crude oil combined with other substances like pine resin. These methods would have been used to increase the potency of the flames. While these theories exist, the exact formula of Greek fire is still a mystery even today. When it comes to electric cars, we often give a lot of credit to Tesla for making them extremely popular and practical. But it looks like electric cars were not actually a new concept. Even though we were still unclear as to who invented the very first electric car, the first well-known electric car was built in 1890 by William Morrison, who began his life as a chemist. Although content with chemistry, his interest was mainly in electricity and batteries. Morrison focused on the chemistry of electric storage batteries, and he sought to make a battery which was portable yet very powerful, enough to power a car. Extensive research in the field is what led to the very first successful American electric car in 1890. It consisted of a carriage manufactured by the Des Moines Buggy Company, and it was equipped with Morrison's new storage batteries and an electric motor to power the right rear wheel. Of course, this early prototype was never a success, but still it's crazy to think that humans thought to invent electric cars way back in the 1890s, even though they had only become a reality in the 21st century. When it comes to the invention of the telescope, Galileo gets all the credit, but it looks like we already had something similar to a telescope at least 2,000 years ago. Yes, we are talking about the Nimrud lens, which happens to be the very first telescope that researchers have found evidence of. Even today, scientists and historians are confused about its original use. There is a group of people who believe that the lens, which was used by the ancient Assyrians, could be part of a telescope, which would clearly explain their dominance in the field of astronomy. Because the Assyrians' technology was so ahead of its time, even scientists today are still confused as to how they could pull this invention off. In an attempt by historians to disprove the use of the lens as a telescope, there are speculations that it could be just a magnifying glass or a burning glass to start fire by concentrating sunlight. Either way, this is still a very interesting piece of technology. So with all of these examples, it is clear that we have always had mind-blowing technologies, some even dating back to the early days of humans. Starting with the invention of the wheel and the invention of fire. As humans evolved, there were those inventors who could think outside of the box. Some of them may have been born at the wrong place or at the wrong time. Maybe if these inventors could have expanded on what they created back in their day with the technology of today, the world would have celebrated them. Their scientific knowledge would make it possible for us to create better machines and products with the technology that we have today. Although this is not going to happen, their legacy is here to stay.